Hey.
Hey, Tim Moss. Good to see you.
I love that backdrop there. That's fabulous.
Oh, I know, right? It looks like a painting in the tropics, which is where I wish I was right now.
Yes.
Hi, everybody. I am Wendy Stuart, and this is
Tim Moss. Hi.
We are here today with If These Walls Could Talk.
Yes.
Thank you all for tuning in. This is a perfect day to tune in because we've got this big storm heading here, although there's nothing out my window now. What about you, Tim?
No. It's supposed to start in a little while, but yeah, it's supposed to get really bad overnight here. But it's supposed to be a big one. It's supposed to be a big storm coming
It's going to be a huge nor'easter.
Yeah.
We don't want to talk about that. We want to talk about sunshine lollipops.
we were going to shoot this live from Pangea because we love Pangea, but we thought it best today just to be on the safe side to do it from our home. So
we are in our humble little homes, but we do want to remind everybody Pangea is open for takeout.
Yes.
Now, Tim and I and a few other friends got to celebrate safely outside. It was just last Saturday.
It was so fun. Yeah, that was kind of a farewell for the time being because they've stopped indoor dining here in New York City.
Yes, they did, and you can get really great takeout. It's their regular menu there, so I encourage you stop on by. Delicious stuff. And another great thing that everybody needs to know about, they still are going to be able to live stream from their cabaret.
Yes.
So even though there's no indoor dining, they'll be live streaming from the cabaret, and we'll have more information on that probably on our next show.
Absolutely.
So thank you all for being here today.
Now, also, one thing that I want to mention is Icavelli's 50 Shades of Gay Christmas Spectacular is now online. You can go to Icavelli's Facebook page, and all the information is there. The link on how to get to it. Wendy is there. I'm there. It's a fabulous show.
All of our friends and a few people that we know. It really is a very fabulous, funny, heartwarming show. And in Ike Avelli's own words, you better put the little Rugrats to bed. It's not a family show.
Right. But our good friend Nick Lyon, I wanted to say hello and Merry Christmas to you. And I just received this. Isn't that a beautiful ornament? A beautiful ornament tree. Now all I need
beautiful, but I didn't get an ornament. Why didn't I get an ornament? You didn't send me an ornament.
But all I need is a tree. But I will probably hang this on the wall.
It's lovely. You know what? And you can put it on a ribbon and wear it.
That's true.
How's that for Christmas?
Yeah.
So, without further ado, we're very excited about today's guest.
Oh my God, he's incredible.
Singer, songwriter. I mean, he's had his songs remixed with people from the Black Eyed Peas, Eric Murillo. I mean, you name it. He's out there. And one of the coolest things about this singer-songwriter that I love so much is he's taking his amazing talents and bringing it to a very powerful campaign.
Absolutely.
Which is called I Am No Joke or No Joke. And it's a hashtag. And one of the great things about it is it's an anti-bullying campaign. And we need more people out there to be aware of how serious bullying is.
Absolutely.
And our guest has been lucky enough because so many people are into what he's doing. He's got major celebrities, including Soho Johnny, behind the campaign. There's a documentary that's being made about it, so it's all good. So you know what, Tim? I'll let you introduce the guest.
Well, please welcome to If These Walls Could Talk, the fabulous and wonderful Andrew Cole.
Hello, everyone. How are you?
Andrew.
Good.
How are you today?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good. It's a sunny day and everything's fantastic.
You have a sunny day where you are, and we're just like hunkered down here for a blizzard. I would kill to see a palm tree right now, I have to tell you.
There's a bunch of them, and I love snow, so I would kill to see some snow. But a blizzard.
Well, you're in California.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
So and we're in New York. So again, I appreciate your joining us with the time difference.
I love it. I love it. And you look like a sunny day behind you with that backdrop. I love that.
All right. I'm all about sunny days. I'm dressed for summer right here.
You have a sunny day smile, so it's fantastic.
Oh, well, thank you, Andrew. So I read about you a lot, and your bio really interested me because you kind of grew up. You were very back and forth kind of kid the way you grew up. You split your time between the UK and Canada, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I guess that has a lot to do with who the person you are today. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about your childhood and how it's affected your life?
Yeah, it was an interesting childhood because I was never kind of in the same place, for too long. It was hard to find friends. You'd find friends, and then you would move every 6 months to a year or go to a different school. I went to about 15 schools when I was a kid, and then I stayed in Manchester, and I did my high school in a different town, and then I went to Manchester University, and then I think when I got old enough to kind of, trying to cement my feet somewhere. It still didn't work because then I was in Toronto again, and then now I'm in California, and it's just been crazy, but very amazing to meet so many different people and so many walks of life and cultures and stuff. But yeah, it's been an interesting one because it's very hard to have some stability, in your life. But it's been a wild journey, and I think it's now infected me where I can't sit still.
So now you can't sit still. And your first song, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, was in 2010, yeah?
Yeah, Out of Time came out in 2010. I did a record with about 11 songs on it. It was the first time I ever made a commercial release, and it was a cute record, I guess is the right word. There's some good songs on there. Seems like a long time ago now.
So I think all of the moving around also kind of prepared you for a life as a musician.
Yeah, it did. Totally. And definitely with musical styles and being fascinated with American music against what I guess everyone was listening to where I grew up, which was kind of like the Beatles and the Smiths and that kind of thing.
The Smiths.
I was just going to say, because Liverpool, didn't you grow in?
Yeah, my dad was from Liverpool, and I grew up near Penny Lane and all that kind of.
Oh my God!
Strawberry Fields. We used to run around Strawberry Fields and go and see Eleanor Rigby's grave and stuff like that.
Oh, come on, that's fabulous.
And,
that's so iconic.
And a lot of the people that the Beatles sang about were real people. I mean, they were just like the guy who runs the shoe shop and Father Mackenzie. Working at the church and all that. So it was pretty cool.
Who Lucy was.
Say that again, sorry?
I wonder who Lucy was in the Sky.
Oh, yeah. Well, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. I mean, that was, I think,
LSD.
Julian that was a song about Julian, and that was like kind of a fascination of about hallucinogenics and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. So LSD.
Yeah. And what is that lesson? That was one of my favorite songs. I love that. I remember, I didn't first, because I was a kid, didn't understand Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. My older sister said to me, Wendy, they're singing about LSD. And I was like, oh, okay.
I love that. I love that song. I remember when I took my mom to see Paul in Toronto. My dad went to school with Paul, and we went to a show. We went to a show in Toronto, and I remember my mum saying in a little Welsh accent, which was so cute, and she said, "You know why I love the Beatles or Paul McCartney? He never messed around with any of that funny stuff, And I was like, I think he did,
Bless her heart.
Now, coming from Liverpool, I mean, and as a musician, I mean, did you feel like a pressure? Because I mean, one of the biggest groups in the entire world in musical history came from Liverpool.
Yeah,
there would be a certain amount of pressure to live up to Liverpool.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Tim. That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I think. That's a strange one. For me, the kind of the Liverpool bands, and there was a few of them, not just the Beatles, that were massive. But for me, it was like my nursery rhymes as a kid. You know, they were the things that rocked me to sleep. They were the things my dad would sing to me. You know, I was never, funny enough, I only got fascinated with those bands when my father died. I was really infatuated with American bands at the time, and when I was growing up, like Nirvana and bands like that, you know. So yeah, there was no real pressure, because I just think people, you couldn't really attain, you were never in a competition with that music. You were never, it was kind of like godlike. It was kind of like the Bible of music. It was like Beethoven of Liverpool, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Beethoven of Liverpool.
You know, it was something that you didn't touch, but you admired it, and you learned from it, and you explored the music, and it gave you a freedom to create your own thing. So it was more of a beauty, but it definitely felt good, a part of your heritage. I got invited to play John Lennon's 70th birthday by Yoko. And Yoko invited us out with the John Lennon educational school bus. And I got to play the Cavern on Matthew Street, where the Beatles kind of used to play, you know, and that was like an honor to me. So I've always had that kind of honorable feeling. But then, you know, I was born in Canada, in Toronto, and then I always had that, you know, you've got your roots there with kind of like the Neil Young, Bryan Adams kind of old. So it's been fascinating to kind of have this kind of split personality, musical, like who am I, what am I into kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, not really.
Do you identify more with Canada or the UK, or would you say it's equally helped you become the person that you are?
Yeah, I think equally. I think, I guess, you know, you learn about your sensibility, your idioms, your humor. You know, I do think I've got way more of an English dark sense of humor.
I love it.
Definitely.
I've been told, like, sometimes I'm, you know, I've got that kind of moody gray slate sky thing, but then I love the sensibility of Canada and what they're about, and now in America. I mean, it's just nice to be. It just it opens your heart culturally to different things. But I mean, yeah, I suppose I'm more English. I mean, my accent. I remember in Canada they used to put me on the radio and say, you know, and we've got Canadian born. He's a fellow Canadian, and then I'd
you get on with that accent,
and they'd be like, "He's not Canadian. What are you talking about?" So I've always been in that position of the foreigner. Even in school, I was always the foreigner. You know, if I came from Canada, I was a foreigner. If I went to America, I'm now a foreigner.
Well, that's what I was wondering too. I mean, that from going from place to place, and again and internationally as well.
Yeah.
A couple questions. One is, was it your father's work or something that took you around? And the other question is, did you feel almost again, like you didn't belong in any one of these places?
Well, I'm sorry, I'm moving around here. You
go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Just getting seasick, but that's fine, Andrew.
I'm moving. I'm on the move again.
On the move.
You find a comfortable spot.
It's a good question. It's a good question. And the fascinating thing about it, which isn't that fascinating, is my dad was a truck driver. So definitely nothing to do with his work. And my mother was a nurse. And I think they just, my dad's sister married someone from Canada, and they were just fascinated with the place. So nothing to do with work. No musicians in the family. My mother was an amazing, awesome choir singer at church, which led me to sing in the choir.
But your mom was a singer. Your mom was a singer.
No, she wasn't a singer, but she was a singer. I think if you can fly a plane really well, you're a pilot, you know. So she wasn't a professional singer, but if you heard her in church on a Sunday, she had a voice on it, you know. And I think that's where I grew my roots, from going to church and singing in the choir, in the cathedrals. I used to love these big, even if you're not religious, or, you know, you felt this connection with God, you know, and this holy kind of, you know, 25 young kids singing in the choir with everyone in the church. It's pretty amazing feeling. So that's where I think I always love, even in my music now, that I've always loved that, and I've always wanted to have kind of like a church choir on a song. So yeah. Don't know why we ended up everywhere. No idea. Maybe just like they were just rovers. I don't know. It's crazy. gypsy
But
rope.
again, like you go to Canada, there's a culture there. There's a
Yeah, totally.
thinking there. There's a way of talking there. There's you know, and you're outside coming in.
Yeah.
And you go somewhere else, and that's a different culture and a different way of speaking and a different. That's why I was just wondering, like, it would be amazing because you would get such an exposure to the different cultures and the world.
Which
no, it's amazing. It's like
great. When you're writing songs, that's really great. But you know, Tim, I'm thinking about growing up, right?
Yeah.
That had to be really hard on a kid. It's hard enough to fit in. And you're a creative person, that's hard to fit in. And now, you know, you're going from the UK to Canada, back to, it's a lot of bouncing back and forth. It must have made it very hard for you to make friends.
Yeah, it was. It was hard to say goodbye, I think, all the time. It was never hard to make friends. You were always the exotic foreigner. It's kind of like if an American goes up and goes to a pub in Wales and orders a pint of Guinness, everyone in the pub's going to want to talk to you and be like, "Oh my God, you know, you're exotic almost," you know.
Yes.
But I think what it did was it always taught me to kind of travel within and find out who is the nucleus of what you are, you know. Doesn't matter where you are, you're always kind of going back to that discovery of who you are, kind of like going on holiday or watching the Travel Channel or the Food Network channel.
What a great analogy. Fantastic analogy.
Kind of like when Anthony Bourdain used to go to, like, I don't know, he'd go to Cuba or France and he'd be having the same kinds of conversations because we're all people. We all love, we all have the same kind of feelings and just different accents and different tastes of food, different music. So I feel really blessed that I've had that opportunity. I don't think it's more of a blessing than a curse, I think, and I wouldn't have changed it in any other way. I do have friends, you know, I do have friends that have lived in the same house for 35 years and they know everyone in the street and everyone calls them out by name, and it's just like going to a small town anywhere. And I think that's a beautiful thing as well, and I've always been kind of secretly jealous of that, but I wouldn't change my crazy journey here, you know, that I'm still on.
Now, so your mother sang in the choir. When did that musical craving, the musical craving start with you? Well,
you know, I remember from one of my favorite memories was having these, you know, coasters that you put your drink on or whatever. I would put these coasters all over the floor and lay on the ground as like a 4-year-old child with like spoons and forks. And I would be listening to Phil Collins and ELO, and I'd be like playing the floor, like pretending I was a drummer, just trying to make some kind of musical sense out of it.
So great.
I was always just trying to make, you know, melody or music, even not knowing what I was doing. And I think the fascination was the learned culture of what my parents were listening to. The sounds were healing any kind of chaos in my life. It doesn't matter what band it was. I think my mom and dad had a good taste, maybe, but they could have been listening to heavy metal, and I would have been maybe into that, you know. And I think that's when I got into music, was the minute I could make any sound out of my mouth or my arms, I would create something. And it was only until later on that I got involved in wanting to kind of write songs and not just copy.
How old were you when that happened? I mean, this is an amazing picture that you painted, a 4-year-old kid with coasters on the ground. That, you know, this is something I believe it was already in you. Okay, that's not learned. That was already in you, and you just brought out something that, you know, music even back then was it helped you cope, right, with the things around you.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
you take that all forward to when you first started writing songs and singing. How old were you then?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just quickly say it's crazy what you said, because I'm remembering even further back, like when my mom used to say to me, you know, when I was pregnant with you and I had a big belly, I would sing to you and put like the radio close to the belly and stuff, and you would be moving around, and, you know, cut from there. I'm not saying I was writing songs while I was in my mom's belly, but
you were feeling the music.
If you cut from there, I was a late bloomer. I mean, I started writing songs when I was like 16, 17. Probably some of the worst songs you'll never hear, because no one will hear them.
We all have those.
But I think that was when I started. I played guitar long before I could write a song, and I sang and danced long before I could play an instrument. So it was a very late start, and I think I wrote a song that I was proud of probably around the age of 18. It was a very late start for me.
That's interesting that you say it's a late start. That doesn't seem, teenager is when things start to come together and fall apart at the same time, right? And all that stuff that's in you just boom, it just explodes. So that had to be what was happening for you.
Yeah, I mean, there's video footage of me. I mean, I was an 80s baby. I was fascinated with We Are the World and Michael Jackson and bands like that. So there's a lot of video footage of me kind of, 12 family members. My mum had 10 sisters, so there's a lot of cousins. So I would be sitting around, they would sit around the couch, and I would try and do my best man in the mirror Michael Jackson dancing experience, and I was always trying to be like the center of attention and try and express myself through any form of art. But yeah, I mean, I think it took a long time, because considering I was kind of singing and dancing at the age of 4 or whatever, that's quite a long time to start creating your own magic or whatever,
Well, you say you got a late start. I'm going to be 60 in a few months.
Oh, wow.
I just discovered this last year, my ability of songwriting.
That's amazing.
Never too late.
No, never too late. Never too late. I wish I'd started.
You both just said it. It's never too late. But for both of you, you've got to be willing, right, to put yourself out there to do it. Many people aren't. So, that's another thing, taking the risk, jumping off of the cliff and saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to go for it. I don't care what people think. I'm just going to do it.
I think that's why it took me so long, because, and even now, talking about bullying and struggling with your own insecurities and what you think of as a person, of yourself, I think I was always just too nervous, or didn't think I could possibly do something like, you go back to your first question, like the Beatles. It's like, how could you even get close to making a noise or doing anything that's that incredible? So I think it was a lot to do with bravery and just kind of not caring in the end, and just kind of like, using it as a healing tool for yourself, or an expressive tool to make other people happy, as an entertainer would do.
Yeah, well, there's so many levels to music.
Yeah.
There's believe there's a mathematical base to it.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes, to music. And then you have the different instruments that blend to create that sound and that feel.
Yeah.
And then you have the words and the lyrics, which have meaning and all of that. There's so many different things going on at one time in a song.
Yeah, it's magic, really. It's like a controlled chaos of all these things flying around, and sometimes happy accidents can happen, and sometimes you create a song where sometimes the music will reflect what you were saying, and the lyrics and everything kind of comes together in this magical bliss, and sometimes not so much,
Yeah.
So it's a case of just continuously doing it. And I loved when McCartney used to say, people would ask him, so how do you write these songs? And he was like, I don't know, and I don't want to know. It's magic,
It just is. It's something that comes out. So with that being said, what do you think is the most challenging thing about collaborating with somebody?
That's a really amazing question. It depends on who the person is, but it's about being one of the most beautiful things about collaborating with anyone is kind of finding not an equal, but like a similar harmony between each other.
Similar.
Emotionally, I think, more than musically. Of course, the music has to sound, it's got to meld, otherwise it could just sound like bad chaos. But I think if you're sitting there with a songwriter or a lyricist, or just, I've written songs with people that are like, my mom has walked into the kitchen and said, I wouldn't say that line. I think what you're trying to say is this. So I don't think it matters. I don't think you've even got to be like a technical, when people say I'm a professional musician or whatever, I've never understood that statement, because you can write a song with anyone as long as you can meet them on common ground.
It's like give and take.
My biggest song I ever wrote, my favorite line you know, box up your dreams and wait for a miracle. Falling man's free. I mean, I didn't write that line. That was Patrick Williams, who I'd hired as my social media guy like 10 years ago.
Get out. I love it.
And I had to like open an account through the Songwriters Association so that he could get like publishing dollars. And he's never written a song in his life. I don't know if he's ever written a song since, you know. So that just shows you that, you know, if someone has something cool to say or is harmony and it resonates on the same level, then I mean, why not?
Well, now you had mentioned that you were an '80s kid, and you mentioned ELO and Beatles, and who were some of your inspirations, musical inspirations, when you were growing up?
Yeah, you know, I love Phil Collins, I love Pink Floyd, but I loved like Erasure, and I loved Annie Lennox. I loved the Eurythmics. I loved you know, those big pop bands like you know, George Michael. I love George Michael.
Me too.
And of course, Michael Jackson. I was always having a Michael Jackson T-shirt on, and I was always trying to dance like him, very poorly.
Can you dance like him?
Not anymore, but I used to remember. Well,
So
I could never do any of that stuff, but I definitely.
That's good, Tim. I like that. Was that a moonwalk?
Yeah, did you do the moonwalk?
I like that. That's really good.
That was
I could moonwalk on the sofa.
yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, there's so many good bands in the eras that went through. You know, I think I was blessed to be around the 80s. I mean, you know, people frown upon different eras. I mean, I wished I was around in the 70s, you know, talking with my friends, or the 60s. I mean, so many amazing eras. I don't know why they always change in decades, but like even the 2000s. Right. The 90s were amazing with Oasis and those
right.
kind of,
The cool thing is you can go back to any of these decades. I love music, and I love all kinds of music. Yeah. And you can go to the 50s. There was such great stuff that came out of there. Every decade, and the beauty of music, it never goes away. It always exists. And certainly, like for someone like you, it's influenced who you are now.
Yeah, totally. And you know, a lot of musicians, some people, again, you know, this obviously the sounds can change, and the 80s was all about the birth of you know, electronic sounds, keyboards and things like that. But I think the really cool thing is like with like people like Bowie and stuff is that, you know, people today say I'm a pop artist or I'm a pop star. You know, not me. I'm not a pop star of any means, or a star of anything. I'm just a, you know, when they say rock star, I used to say I'm just a rock. You know, but the thing is, right, is you know, the politics of the world, what's going on in the world, the reflection of the world. When you look back to Johnny Cash eras and then the Doors.
I love Johnny Cash. I love the Doors.
It's amazing because some artists follow what's going on around them, and it changes within the culture of the world with politics and wars and all sorts of things. And I think music is so healing as well, that it can be used as a tool to inspire nations. It can stop wars. It can help bullying. It can just makes you feel like you're not alone. Music can be your best friend, and I love that about music. It's so powerful.
Yeah, it is. It really is an expression of what is happening in the world. That's why I think it may shift from decade to decade, is because there's a different feeling for each decade, and music is one thing that just kind of reflects that feeling.
And I think right now with COVID. Sorry, I cut you off there.
Oh yeah, it's fine. It reflects the politics of what's happening now.
Yeah.
And, I'm thinking while we're talking here, I'm trying to think of the music that's coming out now that is reflective of like something none of us have ever experienced before in our lives, this pandemic.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Andrew?
Well, it's interesting what you said, something that none of us have experienced in our lives. And I think one of the most poignant things I've seen, and definitely with what I've created, because I can speak personally, and at the start of this shindig, everyone was like, what are we going to do? And the world kind of went silent for a month to kind of recalibrate.
Yeah.
And I think the most beautiful thing is that I think what people have maybe not experienced as much as other times, and it's happened in history, is that people have gone within. They've not experienced, I think on an artist level, or even if you're not an artist, we've been forced to go within ourselves and understand who we are and what we believe in, and self-love and things like that. And I do think now that I'm hearing some of the stuff that was created when the curtain went dark and the stage was closed down, there's so many amazing bands creating such magic, some of the best work they've ever created in the dark, solo, isolated. You know, this whole COVID thing has really forced us to search within, because what other choice do we have? And you know, you can go deeper, or you can go quiet. And I'm really inspired by people that have gone out there and tried to not go silent and not go dark.
I think it's an incredibly creative time for many people. The other flip side to the coin is it's so emotionally damaging and psychologically damaging that it can immobilize a person, and all that stuff that's in there just stays in there. They can't get it out because they can't wrap their head around what's going on now.
But I have a feeling that we're going to have a resurgence of some amazing music coming up. Amazing stuff.
And I think people in general as well. I think we're having a resurgence of humanity.
Agreed.
We're having a resurgence of all sorts of things, and it's so healing. And you know, music. We need music now more than ever. Really.
Yeah, to guide and to lead us. I agree.
Absolutely.
Now, one more thing. Just looking back on your childhood, did you ever, in any of these schools that you would find yourself in, were you ever bullied?
Yeah, I mean, I was bullied because I was always different. I was always the
yeah. Oh, right.
I had a little, you know, apparently I had a little Canadian accent, and I used to say things that no other kids would say, or use words that no other kids would use. But, you know, I kind of had it made, and I kind of didn't have it made, because some kids were like, "You're exotic, you're cool, everyone wants to be Andrew's friend. Oh, he's from Canada, you know, he's from North America, he's amazing." And then some other kids were like, "No, you're weird. You're different. You know, you're not one of us." So, you know, I had a few bullies in school, and I came from a pretty dangerous neighborhood that when they were bullying you, you thought they, you know, if someone said, I'm gonna hurt you, you believed them, you know. So it was like, it was a scary place. But then there was an inner community, like any tough neighborhood, where you had beautiful families and people that stuck together, and it taught you a camaraderie of kind of like the working class heroes of the world, and you cut your teeth with that kind of thing. So I was never a tough kid. I never fought back. I never hit a bully. I could never stand up for myself. I was a quick runner, and I learned how to talk my way out of everything. So you know, I had a few incidents where I was kind of, you know, physically hurt or whatever, but you know, it really affected me emotionally, and my father was a bully to me too, so that was difficult.
So you carried all that forward to this anti-bullying campaign. I am no joke. Now, this is a documentary.
Yeah, it's part of it. I mean, I Am No Joke is kind of like the universe, hashtag I Am No Joke, and then you've got these little planets off it with like the song, like the We Are the World. I guess that came from Michael in the 80s and me saying, let's do a We Are the World song. And then there was a documentary called hashtag No Joke that Adam Leipzig created, which was kind of like the making of this Griswold's Vacation to Changing the World or whatever. You know?
Yeah. Well, let's take a look at the official trailer for hashtag No Joke real quick.
I love this trailer.
I do too. It'll take me a second here because I am not the most.
There we go. I'm a joke. I went to about 20 schools. I was always the weird guy or the newbie. But it was only really when I went to a public school, that's when all the bullies started. When I was bullied, I used to tell people, "What do you think, I'm a joke? Do I look like a joke to you?" So that one day, they came in like a pack of wolves. They just went, bang, bang. Hi, I'm Andrew Cole.
Hello, how you doing? Sure.
I'm Andrew Cole, and I've written a song to make a difference for people who are being bullied right now. But the thing is that I'm nobody, so I have to build an army. For months, I ran around trying to get familiar faces on this song.
Rihanna, Taylor, do it.
I think I'm nuts. I can't wait for musicians to come out of clubs and hotels. I have to get in where they are. So I come up with a plan.
See the Chateau Marmont sign? Stand under that and take my picture when I come through.
And I'm going to walk in like you're annoying me, and that's how I'm going to get in. Andrew Cole.
Walk on premise and film.
Okay, I'm leaving. And all of a sudden, it started to work. A friend of mine said to me, Jeff Goldblum really likes your music. And I just outright said to him, do you want to play piano on my song? And he was like, oh yeah, sure. Got any other friends as well that want to help me? Drummers, bass players.
I was this skinny little 7th grader, and she was like this big, kind of tough girl. When I was growing up, like, it was always going to be a bully in the neighborhood. I was a bully.
I feared it so much that I became one.
I'm ashamed of all of these incidents.
I thought I wasn't allowed to speak my mind or be me, because everyone would knock me down. And it's all about forgiveness. I think you can fix yourself. 50,000 people were retweeting, when's the song out? We want to buy it. And then he tells someone, I'm going to make a song to change the world, and everyone says, we can't do that.
It's a good idea.
Fantastic. Well, it was worth the trip then.
It's time. Baby, it's time.
Maybe it's time the world should go.
It could be absolutely colossal.
Wow.
Wow. Andrew, that is, I've watched it a number of times. It's so impressive. I mean, Jane Lynch, Ozzy Osbourne, Sir Patrick.
Jeff Goldblum.
Patrick. I mean, this really, you know what? This is an incredible example of having a vision, wanting to make a difference, and saying, I'm going to go for it. Not going to take any rejection, not taking no for an answer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a difficult journey. You know, we're still on it. I mean, it's never going to end, but it's a good thing, and it's taught me a lot about myself. And it's just an ever constant thing. I remember Lemmy saying to me in the interview, it was probably one of the most poignant moments. There was two. There was one when I asked Ozzy Osbourne, and I said, "Do you love yourself?" And he just said, "I'm working on it." You know.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Wow. Okay. And then the other one was when Lemmy said, you know, I'm only doing it. Like, you would never see Lemmy do a charity song. I mean, he was the guy out of Motorhead, and he was kind of like, he comes across as this tough nut guy when really he was a sweetheart. And he said to me, you know, I'm only doing this because I think you're still trying to heal yourself.
Mm.
You know, you're not coming across as someone who's kind of, I've never come across as, I've always been on an exploration. It's kind of like An Idiot Abroad or whatever meets Anthony Bourdain, where I don't really know. I'm not a psychologist or a Yoda or a healer or anything like that. And I really am just trying to get to the bottom of how we can love ourselves more and forgive
Aren't we all?
other people and forgive ourselves for things just to make the world a closer place. And kindness is so important. And I think that's one of the things that's been lost in humanity lately. So I think it's a good time for everyone to just, you know, virtually hug people and just kind of love yourself as best you can.
Yeah. But also, don't cut yourself short, because by following your heart and taking the necessary steps to do this project, look at what's happened and who you've attracted to it. You are a yogi or a healer in your own way.
It was amazing to me. I would cry sometimes in interviews and get really intimidated because, you know, whether you're from a place like Liverpool or a small town in America or, you know, it doesn't matter. But what I'm trying to say is if you come from a community where you think celebrity is a different thing and they're untouchable people and they're not real and everything's okay for them, and you would never be able to stand in front of like Harrison Ford, who's like Indiana Jones to you,
right,
Solo or whatever, and then all of a sudden you're kind of like, it's kind of surreal for me because I could never understand it. So what it did for me was it gave me a new lease of hope for humanity as we're all in this together. It doesn't matter who you are, what you do, you know, whether you're a nurse or you drive a train or whatever I'm trying to say, you know, we all hurt the same. We all feel the same. We all have to be kind. And that's what it did to me. It really taught kids that, you know, these guys are like, they're just like us. And if the posters on our walls could talk and give us advice, that was the thing that was most incredible. So, you know, I really appreciate you guys showing that because it means a lot to me.
Well, listen, this show is called If These Walls Could Talk. And what you just showed is tearing down the walls, getting out there, tearing down the walls. At the end of the day, we are all people. We all hurt the same. We're all on a journey to find our self-love. All right. And we experience the same things. So let's get rid of the walls. All right. Let's reach out there. We're all in this together.
Now, in some ways, I've done a lot of spiritual work.
Yes.
In some ways, I used to, when I was young, getting bullied, I would have hatred for these guys that were doing this.
Yeah.
But now looking back at it, I feel sorry for them.
Yeah.
Because they're tormented.
Yeah.
And they feel that they have to lash out and do this. Yeah. So, coming at it from the human side, everybody reacts or acts a certain way based upon what's going on inside that we know nothing about.
Yeah, I mean,
and I think if we paid a little more attention to that might be a way to help shift it.
Yeah, I mean, when you're working on a project like this, I mean, when you start a project like this, you don't really know the layers of what you're getting into. I mean, at the start, I was just like, hey, let's do a song and do this. And then you start talking to psychologists, psychiatrists, yogis, gurus, Yodas, as I call them. You start to realize that, there's a lot of organizations out there that are saying things like beat the bully or let's beat bullying. Let's take bullying. And it's like the thing, you hit the nail on the head, and it's kind of like, if you can get to the nucleus of the problem and understand that the person, normally fear gets mutated into anger or aggression. And normally the bully is the one that's hurting. And if you can really get into a bully with love, that bully might end up being your best friend, and you're really kind of healing. It's like we all want to be, I mean, I used to read comic books and stuff, and, some kids are fascinated with heroes and X-Men and stuff like that. And I think we have a duty on Earth we're all kind of like able to be superheroes, healers, whatever. And I think you never know who else is hurting around you or who needs the help. So if you can really be compassionate to the bully, I think that's how you beat bullying, so to speak. You can't always reprimand someone. It comes a lot to do with forgiveness and kind of compassion and the empathy to try and put yourself in their position and ask, why are they doing this? It's not going to hurt you as much either. If you can understand why someone's doing it and don't take it so personally, that's also going to release you from a lot of the pain and kind of make you feel compassionate to that other person. And I think that's the medicine, I think,
for both of you, I was never bullied, okay, but I've certainly been involved. I work with kids that have been bullied. How do you find it within yourself to find that forgiveness and find that compassion? How do you do that?
I mean, do you want to answer that first and then I'll give my first? That's a great question.
It's taken me a lifetime to learn to do that.
Yeah, it's a great question.
It's not something I would have known in high school or junior high.
Right.
No, I think it needs to be educated. I think you need to. Yes. I think the thing with schools and just the world is like they don't really have classes. I mean, some schools through this project and other projects have. Like when we did the project in Spain, I was talking to a great friend of mine last night, and he was like, "Hey, Andrew, they're still doing every Wednesday a bully prevention class, in the school."
Fantastic.
And what they're doing is they're teaching, when you're a kid and you're like a sponge and you're learning this information, it's kind of like, you go to a self-defense class to learn how to use, if you're down a dark alley, like what's the self-defense of the mind and how do you learn not to hate? I mean, when we're born as children, we don't hate. We're not bullies. We're not born bullies. We learn it, right? So how do you relearn that cognitive process?
I agree.
And also, how do you? I think it's through trial and error, and just to know that it doesn't work any other way. So if you're going to continually be hatred towards the bully or angry at yourself or self-loathing, you're never going to reach that kind of nirvana or whatever of how you could feel within. And I'm preaching to the choir because I'm kind of hypocrite on that one because, I go through stages and bullying never stops. You can be bullied in your adult life.
Exactly right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just when you're a kid, everyone says the word bully and they think of a kid getting his lunch stolen.
Yep, exactly.
And I mean, it's difficult if you don't there's demons that come into your life. There's things that we're layers. We're very complex human beings. And I think talking to people, it doesn't have to be a psychologist or a healer, a counselor. It could be like some guy on a train or a stranger. I mean, you're always going to learn from someone. As humanity, a lot of us love, you know. So it really is a case of I just don't think it works any other way. And I think you just keep hitting a brick wall. And at the end of the day, it's like, how do we forgive the bully or someone that's done something bad to us? And some people use spirituality, or they turn to God, or they turn, but you're always going to find that I think the most heavenly love is the love you have for yourself, and kind of talking to yourself like a parent. Like, how do you speak to yourself like your own parent? Like, especially when your parents are past, or you're older, or, you know, maybe you don't have any parents. Like, how do you be your own best friend and your own parent to yourself, and talk to like the little Andrew, or
exactly
like the little Wendy, you know, like what does Wendy think when she's like 6? Like, is she okay? Like, is she all right? Like, you know, you tap into
Andrew, I'm still very childlike. And anyone who knows me will say that. But what you're talking about here is a person's ability to dig deep and go back and deal with things that we felt that were not always happy for us as children. And that's tough. That's a tough one.
And being willing to change.
Yes.
That's a big one. Now, we should have led off with this, but I've just had the best time talking with you.
I know, it's great.
I mean, I just want to give a quick list of who Andrew Cole is. I mean, you've performed as an opening act for artists like Elton John and John Fogerty and Tom Jones and Metallica. And I mean, what a wonderful career that you have built.
Incredible career.
And once again, I thank you so much for following your heart with this video, because that is a way of changing the world, a way of changing people's thinking. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. I mean, you know what? A lot of this, to be honest, it's not really been me. You know, it's the community that I've surrounded myself with. I've been really blessed to have believers. I always tell people, you know, the Bully Project itself has a cast of probably 3,000 people. I mean, you know, just naming the people, every little increment of people that have helped and believed. I mean, you could never do this. I'm just the guy who started the little snowball thing, and then everyone else was pushing it, turning it into a snowman. You know?
And Andrew, you made the snowball. You're the one that went out there. You grabbed the snow, you formed it in your hand.
Yeah.
And you the snowball. Okay, you spearheaded it. That's everything.
Exactly.
I mean, we're not done. You know, there's so much more, but I appreciate it, and I just want to thank everyone else that's ever, you know, crossed paths with, you know, just with even my career and everything. I mean, all those kind of crazy shows with the belief of agents or managers or people that just thought, well, you know, we'll give you a chance to do something crazy, and it was, you know, again, things like that. Opening for people like that with my upbringing was very difficult, because you're faced, you're just about to go on stage and there's like 50,000 people, and you're like,
right,
can I even do this? Like, who am I? Like, how am I going to do that? You know,
and that takes guts to take that person out on that stage.
Yeah, and you just kind of force yourself into it. I remember when I opened for Metallica, there was 200,000 people in
wow.
It was in Canada, in Quebec, and you know, they heard my sound check, and I know he didn't mean it because it was a joke, but Hetfield came out his dressing room and he was like, "Say goodbye to your career, kid. You sound like John Denver." You know, like,
oh my God!
And he was just joking. You know, there was a sea of black T-shirts and long hair, and I love Metallica, but my music sounds nothing like it. And of course, it was a festival, and I remember saying to the people in kind of broken French, and I was like, you know, I was on my own with an acoustic guitar because I couldn't afford to take a band or anything. And I said to the people, you know, am I doing okay? Like, are you still there, kind of thing? And everyone was like, yeah, we're here, you know, hey, you know, like, so it's like bringing this community in. And then I wasn't alone anymore, right? You know, I had all these people kind of like rooting for me. That was an amazing feeling, because I was really nervous, you know.
Yeah. Well, again, Andrew, I could talk to you all day.
I know. So could I. Oh, how do people find out more about you? Can we have your website?
Yeah. Well, my website is iamandrewcole.com, which is kind of funny. And you can go on Instagram for @IamNoJokeProject.
Yes.
My Instagram right now is down, which used to be @AndrewColeMusic. But I'm going to open another one, which is probably going to be I Am Andrew Cole, or I Am. Anyway, just go on Facebook is the easiest way
to find. Great.
Andrew Cole Music.
Andrew Cole Music. You
can message me and find me there.
Well, Andrew Cole, thank you so very much for stopping by and chatting. And again, thank you for all you're doing. Just keep following your heart.
Thank you guys for having me on. Thank you for what you're doing, because now you're, this is what I'm talking about. This is like, we're all a community here. We're all in this together.
Right. So. Andrew, it's about all of us taking who and what we are and bringing it out there and bringing the world together and making a difference.
I love it. Thank you guys. You're beautiful people.
Thank you. Thank you.
You.